So again, I guess this is more for Brady's benefit because he's not here right now. Tuesday next week will be the test on chapters 1 and 2. Wednesday, we're making the trip over to the St. Charles Economic Development Council, whatever it is.
And that's a hands-on test?
The test, yes, all tests now will be hands-on tests.
Okay.
So it'll be open book, open notes, closed neighbor, all right? And then Thursday, we will go over, first thing, we will go over this exercise. Now, if you get a chance before then and you want to try it, that's totally up to you, all right? And then the rest of the period, then on Thursday, we'll go over the next chapter, which is chapter 4. And maybe we'll even do that exercise as a class. Once we get to chapter 5, I don't even think I make you do the exercise. It's on debugging, and they show you the trace feature. You're gonna like, oh wow, that's cool, whatever. Because there's nothing wrong with it. But when the program runs, you get to see everything that happens behind the scenes, and they have you put a couple messages on there. That's all. That's all it is. And a regular trace message appears in black, so it's hard to see because all of your text is in black. And then a warning message appears in red. So they say if you're going to put your own messages in, you should really use red. So you should use warnings. So, all right. So let's, fairly quickly, if we look right here, run this. I've got two things open, and this is the program that we just, right before the break, we were going over chapter 3. So this is the chapter 3 program, non-bootstrapped. All right? And it's real easy to see once it comes up. I'm not going to run it or anything else. I'm not that concerned right now, okay? And we know the future value thing works. We did that as a class. But the point is, when you look at this, it's now been formatted with CSS. I know you know that. But see that? That's not responsive. Does that make sense to everybody? It's nothing. Because I've had people say, yeah, it's responsive. No, it's not. All right? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. However, if you created this for someone, there's a lot of companies today, if you create a website for them and you get it up, even if it's in a test mode or whatever, one of the first things they're going to do is bring it up on the phone. I'll just tell you that. That's just the way it is. And they're going to say, we've done studies and 75% of our traffic comes from our phone. Well, if that's the case, don't you understand why you do mobile first? All right. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So when we start to look at what's different in this particular example.
What are they counting as mobile? Is that for the tablets and stuff too?
Yes.
What about even laptops or smaller screen size?
But the other thing with mobile today too is, as an example, cars are mobile. When I went over, at the beginning of the semester, I was talking to one of the automotive guys. I actually was in the other building, and I was talking to him, and he was showing me this little tablet that he's got, and basically now all their diagnostics they do through that. And he said it's so cool. We used to have to hook up sensors, and it cost you so much money. Now basically they're all built into the car, and we just have to sit there and just test them using our tablets.
I saw somebody doing that to my friend's car one time. Somebody who just does that kind of stuff.
All right, so here's our body stuff, H1, label. Here's our special classes. So that's the entry. All right, so that says put a left margin in there. Again, that's a 16 pixel margin. Does that make sense to people? That's an 8 pixel margin bottom, and 10, whatever that is. When you work with M's, you should kind of keep in mind, you might want to start with a tablet. It's very hard to start testing on a phone. If you've got a website of any complexity, it can give you a headache. If you don't already have glasses, it can give you glasses. It's not a joke. All right. And it's also, I don't know if they've done studies yet. It's going to be interesting. I think you're going to be more prone to carpal tunnel if you're a texter because, notice this, your wrist is moving whenever you do that. And I watch my kids, and I just can't believe how good they can text. I am not a good texter. And my phone is just terrible because you know how it always puts the word in there for you? All right, 90% of the time it's the wrong word. And then I spell wrong too, and I didn't think my thumbs were fat, but they must be. All right, with the way that I text.
I feel
But-
like this generation, when we're under us, is with the computers and with the texting, it's gonna be
Yeah.
really bad.
There's going to be something else that's going to come too. There really is. All right. I don't know what yet, but there'll be something. But the point is, when you take a look in here, and if we come down to our default and we go to our ASPX file, this is their version, so this isn't, you know, but the point is, this is the exact same thing that we built. There is no change. The code is 100% the same as what we looked at in Chapter 2. So all that's been added in here has been CSS. Okay? And you saw, because we just looked at it, the CSS file is fairly big. All right? Then we look at the next one, which is the one that was the bootstrapped one. All right? You can already start to tell how different it looks. And we run that. Ooh, there were errors. No. Well, I can tell you I was jacking with this one because there's no way that it had Jeff, Sandy, Taylor, and Mackenzie, which is my family. So I don't remember playing with that one, but I must have done that before the end of last semester. So that probably won't fix it. I'll probably still have an error. All right, so I changed something in here. Could not load the default file. Huh. All right, I did something to it. So my copy of it is screwed up. But we should still be able to take a look at what's in here. This is the wrong one. All right. They're using 3.3.5 here. This is the bad thing about it when it loads that. All right. This came from Muroc, and notice the version 1.9.1. That might not sound that old, but since then they're up to way over version 3. So there was some version 2 stuff. The big thing is anything that starts with a 1 like that still supports IE 7 and 8. All the new stuff doesn't. All right. But I don't know if one of you asked me this. It might have even been a first year student. I don't remember. But somebody asked. They said, well, what happens? You know, you've got jQuery 1.9.1. Does it upgrade for you? No. All right. You are responsible. I don't think there's an automatic thing that you can plug into a program, not that I know of, that if the version of the software, the jQuery that you're using upgrades, that your program upgrades, not that I've ever heard of. That'd be a cool feature, all right, but I don't think there is something like that. That's what I want. Why aren't you opening? Here we go. All right, so you can start to see when you take a look in here, this is all hosed up, and I don't know how this happened, but it did. So let's just take a look right here. We already talked about this. Again, the Bootstrap Min CSS should be the first spreadsheet that you load. Any other built-in spreadsheets come after that, then yours comes. Okay? The jQuery must come first, then the Bootstrap Min, the jQuery JS, then the Bootstrap Min JS, etc. Now, what if you say that's too much work? I don't want to have to even do all that stuff. You remember what a CDN is? What does it stand for? Let's close. Content Delivery Network. What you can do, and I since they've changed with Bootstrap 4, I may or may not be able to find it. I don't know. Well, let's do it this way. Let's let the system find it for us. There is a whole Let's see if it's here. It's this Bootstrap, not hard to remember, bootstrapcdn.com. Everybody see that? Notice what they have. This one is always the latest and greatest. All right? bootstrapcdn.com. So if you put in this, if I click here, it's going to, click the copy. It's going to copy it to the clipboard. So if I do that, I can just put those files in. I don't have to worry about loading anything on my machine. Okay, if you want to do that. Some people like that, some people don't, but they've got a bunch of stuff in here. There's other ones. There's CSS, there's the JavaScript, there's other ones too. I mean, if you look here, there's getting started in Bootstrap. Let's see if it's got it there. Somewhere in here, I wish I knew this site a little better, but somewhere in here they've got there's Bootstrap CDN. See it? Now look what they give you when you do that. And you look at it, you go, what the hell is all that stuff? Integrity, cross-origin, that's all security-related stuff. That's way over my head. All right? When they talk about the cross-origin, that has to do with who is actually able to run it and the permissions they may or may not have to run it. That's about all I know about it. The integrity is just stuff that's built in. I don't know what it is. All right? Not only that, if you don't know this, there's a bunch of different ways that you can install Bootstrap on your system. All right, we're typically just going to use the one if we install it where we just bring it in. But there's other ways that you can install it too. And the advantage of installing it with the other ways, all right, and if you want to know about less and if you want to know about SAS, you can talk to Ethan. All right, but it'll less is like SAS. All right. So if you want some more power over what you're doing, there's other ways.
SAS.
You what?
SCSS.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. All right, so when we look in here, again, notice there's our div class equal container, and it goes to the very bottom. There's still not very much code in here. There really isn't. All right, and you start, oh, that came up, but it did. You start to look through at what's in here, okay? And the key things that change are just going to be your column designations and your calls to the different Bootstrap classes. All right? So what I plan on doing, because I am not going to lie to you, I haven't done it yet, but like I said, that one for Chapter 4, or 3 rather, this one, we're going to start with a brand new project. I mean, we could copy the old one in and just make changes. We're going to start brand new and try to make it responsive from the get-go. All right, that's going to be the idea. So when we shrink this down, all right, it's going to have its own look and feel to it. All that makes sense? All right. I'm gonna take for granted that you are, at least if you haven't looked at Chapter 3 yet, you're going to look at it by next week, and by next Thursday, you're going to look at Chapter 4. All right, because if we do 4 on Thursday, then the plan is we'll do 5 on Friday. 5 is like about a 15-page long chapter. It's very short. It's all on debugging, and I can show it to you quickly. Now, look, just play computer kind of with me for a second. So next, 4, 11, 18, 25. The plan is next week, we're going to go over chapters 4 and 5, then 6 and 7. Then 8 and 9, then 10 and 11. Why am I telling you that? That's all the pre-database stuff. That means that come October, we'll be into the database stuff. So we'll have October, November, and December, all right? And I have no idea how this meeting's gonna go next week. You know, we may have to change the timelines around a little bit if we take up the project and we start working on the project. All right, if we do, I don't want to waste the whole month of September and just go over this stuff and not start on the project. All right, I want to be starting on it right away. I will tell you, I think I mentioned this the other day, but I want to say it again. Charles thought this was the greatest thing he'd ever heard, seriously. He thought it would be great for the students, and it would be great for the institution. All right, he said, this is what we are supposed to be as a technical college, is going out into the community, helping places in the community, and having the students get real-world experience. All right? I mean, the thing that I've created, and I've got it here someplace, this St. Louis Blues thing, there's nothing wrong with the website I created, but it's mythical. When you're doing something that people are actually going to use, that's pretty good stuff. All right? Can't think of anything else that I really want to say. You know, does anybody have any questions on anything in Chapter 1 or in Chapter 2? All right, and then look at Chapter 3 for next week, and let me know if you have any questions on that, and look at Chapter 4. Like I said, if you have time, you could even go into Chapter 5. When we get into chapters, the later chapters, just so you know, I guess I can tell you this. All right. Let's go back to page 1 here. There we go. All right, so look at this. That means that next week we will be going over a multi-page application and testing and debugging. All right. Then the following week, standard server controls. We already know those. No, they'll talk about checkboxes, radio buttons, etc. Then validation controls. That's just kind of an explosion of what we just went over. So we'll talk about all of the validation controls. So that'll be the following week. Then the week after that, 8 and 9. State, working with state is probably the least amount of fun that you'll have in this class. You might think, I didn't know we were going to have fun in this class. But state is probably the hardest thing to work with. All right. 9 is on master pages. That's a little difficult too. Look at Chapter 10. It's all on Bootstrap. All right. And then Chapter 11, friendly URLs. And if you've never heard of a friendly URL, you ever gone out to a URL and you notice, you know what a query string is now, right? What comes after the question mark? Sometimes with a friendly URL, instead of having all that stuff, they kind of collapse it into just something. So for instance, if I was going to be bringing up a product, rather than saying product name equals, except price equals, etc., it would just give me the name of the product. That's a friendly URL. Once we get done with that stuff, you'll notice Section 3, that's the heart of this book. That's all on databases. All right? We are going to have to try to come up with a way, if we do this project, to figure out who's going to do what. All right? But if it turns out that, for example, we're going to make the database, we want to do it as class, I have no problem with that. But then we're going to have ground rules. We're going to have to agree on things. Because we can't spend a month figuring out how to set up a database for them. Because then, that'll just be too big of a waste of time as far as being able to do other things. So we're going to have consensus, as we talked about before. All right? All right, it's 4. I think that's good enough. Besides, I don't want to watch Ethan stand by the door for 25 minutes. I will ask before you take the test if there are any questions. And if there are, we'll take those ahead of time. But as you already asked, yes, open book, open notes. Okay? All right, that's all I got then.